Welcome, 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 everyone. Let's take a moment and let's hear from our member, Sherry Danner.
Hi, welcome to the May ECG meeting. My name is Sherry Danner. I'm coming to you from Wichita, Kansas. I am a former licensed clinical marriage and family therapist and also a former certified sex addiction therapist. I am now coach. I became a board certified coach and shifted gears about 5 years ago to doing some online coaching and leading groups for mostly women. And now I've transitioned into doing that entirely for women over 50. And I lead a membership called Joy Journaling, which is regular journaling workshops to help women over 50 tap into their inner knowing. I'm an Enneagram 5, and I'm fairly new to the study of the Enneagram. I dabbled in it for many, many years. I'm not exactly sure where I'll be taking this next, but I'm fascinated in particular by the depiction of the type 5, which in a lot of the literature, in my own just anecdotal experience, has been seems to be focused more on the male traits of the type 5, which many do not align for me at all. And so I've had a very hard time finding myself in the depictions of the type 5, partly because of being socialized to behave like a 2. So as many women are. So that's an area of interest. I don't know where I'll take it. I did write a book called Nurturing the Light Inside, which is really about my own shame and perfectionism. I did overcome an addiction to alcohol and am on the ongoing path to self-love and recovery from codependency and also food addiction. So those are areas of interest. And I look forward to incorporating the study of the Enneagram into whatever my next venture is. Thank you.
So nice.
Thank you, Sherry. I have the privilege of getting to know Sherry over the last few months. She's a doll and she is a gift to the world. So thanks, Sherry. Welcome, everyone. My name is Mary Felice, and I'm one of the original founders of the Enneagram Collaborative Global. Before we begin, can you please rename yourself to include your type and wing? For those of you who don't know us, we are an organization created by us for us. We aim to be a safe community for practitioners that draw from the Enneagram to help elevate their skills, collaborate with one another, and grow their individual practices. Our guiding philosophy is to help each other become. I'd like to announce that ECG is going on the road. Next month, we'll be attending the International Enneagram Association's regional conference in Amsterdam. Both Angie Forgione and I will be there right next to the check-in table. I personally have the privilege of sharing my own research Friday afternoon. My presentation is called Conscious Parenting, a Journey to Self-Discovery and Connection. If you're at the conference, please be sure to introduce yourself to us. We'd love to meet you in person. Now I'd like to introduce you to Jean Haskell, our co-executive director, who's going to share a bit about our feedback circles.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your presence today. We trust you're getting inspiration and insights from our seasoned experts, like the two powerhouses that are going to present today. And we try hard to be more than just presenters. ECG is all about fostering a cohesive community and giving members opportunities to connect and dynamically engage. And that's what the feedback circles are. They're designed to do just that, so we can meet in a small group to support and learn from each other. Last week, we met for a case review type discussion about how to keep one's voice when working on a project team that's having challenging communication issues. And in June, 4 members from 4 different continents are going to get together to explore establishing an in-person Enneagram group. So if you haven't attended yet, please join us in June. The feedback circles are open to premium and professional level members. And check out our feedback circles website page. We'd love you to consider registering to submit an idea of your own. And the form to do that is on that page. I'll put the link in here in just a second. Back to you, Mary.
Thank you. Thanks, Jean. And now I'd like to introduce you to Stephanie King, who is our subject matter expert liaison.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you today. I'm excited to announce our newest subject matter expert host for our newly rebranded Relationship SME group. Suzanne Dion is just a lovely person. You can see the book that she is about to come out that she wrote with David Daniels. And also she was one of the founding members of the Enneagram Prison Project. She brings a wealth of knowledge to this group, and it will be co-facilitated with our own Leora, who is here with us today. And we had an amazing planning session to get ready for this group for you all. And they both invite you to bring your questions as it relates to your relating with self and others, and relationships, relation to relationship structure, and relationship to sex, and relationships to your reactivity to all of these things. So it's going to be a great new group that touches all of our different practice areas. We welcome you to come. You'll see the first session is on this slide on June 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So this is our first group that's going to try a nighttime session for those in North America, and see if that can bring more people, more of us together after our workday, and allow us to come together to have some rich conversation about relationships. So we hope you'll join us for that one. And then these are the other experts and the other subject matter expert groups that we have going on. We just had an amazing session, right, Sandra, for the Business SME yesterday, and just have gotten great insights from even the sessions that aren't necessarily our practice area, thinking about our day-to-day in another light and with another group of folks that are focused in a different area, just has been able to bring aha moments and light bulb moments. So we hope you'll join us. The dates here are on this slide. They're recurring monthly meetings. So we have the dates on the monthly day of the month, and then the times on here. And you can also find this information on Mighty Networks. Each group has its own platform area where we can post information from the conversations and continue the conversation there and sharing. And then it has the dates where you can register for the events, and then they have the link there as well. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Stephanie. Now I'd like to introduce you to someone that ECG absolutely adores, our very own Sarah Wallace. For those who have not yet met Sarah through our Tips of the Trade segment, she is the host of Enneagram at Work podcast and founder and CEO of Enneagram MBA. It's a team training company. She's certified through the Enneagram University and most recently completed level 1 of Awareness to Action program with our very own SME experts, Mario Sikora and Maria Jose Menuda, whose methodology Enneagram MBA closely follows. She's a member of the International Enneagram Association and an active member of ECG. I'd like to introduce Sarah.
Hello, hello. Well, thank you for having me. I was like, that is a big photo of my face right in there. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to this topic. I don't know. Does anybody have, is anybody a fan of the show The Bear? Okay. So this is where this topic came from. I'm looking forward to season 3. It looks like coming out at the end of June. So the fellow fans, it's coming. Okay. So I'm going to get into it. I saw my slides up there, but I think I'm going to be in control of them. So let me just share those here. And then let's see. Mary, I'm going to rely on you. Am I full screen? Okay, got it. Okay, so I know some of us are doing Enneagram workshops already, and then some of us maybe have an interest in it. And I have experience doing more kind of corporate business workshops, but I think that what we talk about today can be applied to literally any industry. So we're going to be going over kind of applying the Michelin standard to our Enneagram workshops. And so they look at 5 things, and we're going to look at how can we apply those 5 things to our own Enneagram workshop presentations. So the first one, they look at using quality products. The second one is mastering your art, kind of mastering that flavor, your technique. What's the personality of the chef? We're going to talk a little bit about that. The value for the money. We'll spend the most time there. And then the consistency of the food. So what I'm sharing with you today is the recipe that I have used for all of my clients in the last 3 years, some of which are shown here. For the most part, people have a great time. People get something from it. And a lot of times I get to come back. And so we'll talk about that at the end. So when we look at using quality products, I think we're considering our Enneagram education, but I think we're also, and I gave a shout out to ECG here too, our continued learning. So yes, we get certified, but also our continued learning. I also think that when we have an opportunity to practice public speaking, storytelling, there's different courses, there's different organizations. And I think the best way is just to do it. The only way to become a speaker or to become a presenter is to speak and present. And so we'll get better over time. But if you have an opportunity, I went through a course, I think 2 years ago now, called Speaking Your Brand, the Thought Leadership Academy. And that was really helpful in helping me develop presentations and speeches, presentations. I also think we have an opportunity to add in industry statistics, industry information, market information, and really start to become not just an Enneagram expert, but an expert in our niche. And so one example that I shared, I know that several of us, or at least I have several Enneagram friends who focus on Enneagram for parenting or Enneagram for parents, whether it's with the kids or a relationship. And so you might sign up for I will get Google alerts for company culture. I'll get Google alerts for oh gosh, I'm trying to think, team building. And so you can sign up for Google alerts, and yours might be parenting trends if you happen to be in this industry. So you're getting kind of the latest tips, trends that you can weave into your presentations for it to really hit as a expert. And again, not making people Enneagram experts necessarily, but showing them how you can help them. And I think adding in the Enneagram, but also those additional industry market informations can help. Okay. And then the second criteria was mastering your technique. And so we have talked about the art of storytelling. I think is really important, being able to weave in examples, your own stories, client stories to really kind of tie down the Enneagram information that you're sharing. I also will be sharing this towards the end, but people are dying to share and discuss with one another. So also kind of adding in the technique of facilitation, which is a little bit different than presenting, I think can also make you an incredible presenter. And then giving your attendees an opportunity to practice, whether that's in small groups, whether that's in partner activities, maybe role playing, having some sort of breakout where they can practice what they're learning. I have made the mistake in the beginning of filling 4 hours with content, and I just wanted them to know everything about the Enneagram, and I could have gone for 2 days. But as I do this, the content gets less and less, and the facilitation, the discussion, the opportunities to practice becomes more and more. There's also an opportunity to add in some flavor with your own handouts, your materials, so that people are leaving with something tangible. And that may be something digital if it's a virtual workshop. Or just because of printing costs, they can print it out themselves, but there's an opportunity to leave them with something. And then also something to consider when you're mastering kind of your flavor of your workshop, your technique, is to think about on the front and the back end. What can I do to make this more valuable? One thing that I will do at the beginning is send out just a super short 3-question survey asking about my team's top challenges in the workplace. I'll ask, what do they want to get out of this session? And I'll ask, is there something you would like to learn in a future session? And that's great for me as I kind of customize the topic, but it's also great for me to then be able to share with the leadership or whoever is hosting the workshop to be able to say, hey, people said they actually want to hear more of this. So it's a great opportunity to do a part 2 in the beginning. On the tail end, I always ask for feedback. What did people take away? What would they like to see different? That also helps with selling a part 2 or additional programming, and it helps me know what to tweak in the future as the presenter. Personality of the chef in the kitchen here. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to really not just niche down in your market, but niche down with your presentation style. And so maybe you become known as the really polished and professional presenter. Maybe you become known as a really fun and entertaining Enneagram workshop presenter. Maybe you create this really calming, safe place and you become known for that. There's always a unique angle with, we've talked about addiction, relationships, parenting, all kinds of different angles, different ways to teach the Enneagram could be a unique angle that you take. You could also kind of you could shine in your local area or your local state and really become the go-to Enneagram person for all kinds of different categories, but in the state of Florida or whatever. So there's different ways to infuse your personality in addition to just thinking about, okay, what area do I want to niche down into? How do I want to be presented? How do I want to be perceived? And then value for the money is the 4th consideration here. And I know that we could probably spend a whole hour just talking about this, but I'm going to give you a crash course on some things that I think about. Now, please know that all of today I'm learning right here with you. So, take it with a grain of salt, use it. What works for you, ignore what doesn't, and then know that there's lots of opportunity to customize and change things for yourself. But when I think of the value, it's not just price, it's what is working with you worth. Like what is, like you're about to have, we know this, your couple's maybe about to have a divorce, having really a hard time at home with their kids. Companies are struggling with their team members. Like what is that worth to be able to maybe not solve that forever and always, but to give them a couple of tools to help them navigate? I mean, that's pretty valuable. How will this impact their lives, their relationships? I don't know that we need to like oversell it and claim that we're going to change people's lives in a 2-hour workshop, but I do think that we have some opportunity to say, hey, you're going to start to get some tools. And again, that's very valuable. And then what happens beyond just that workshop? If it's a corporate training workshop, we'll talk sometimes about how this can impact your work relationships, but also I hope that they take it home. And so what is that doing beyond just the workshop? Kind of thinking about what's your ripple effect for what you're giving. A couple of other things to kind of just start to, if you want to take a picture of this one, this might be a good one to brainstorm and make a list of later, but what's your expertise and your experience? Like, have you been teaching the Enneagram for 10 years? Do you have 15 years of HR experience? Like whatever that is, that absolutely counts for something and is very valuable. What's your accreditation? How much time are you going to have to spend researching your client, researching the industry? That also goes into that price. You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to prepare slides. It's not just, oh, this is 2 hours, so I'm going to charge 2 hours of time. There are many hours on the front end and on the back end. So make sure that when you're pricing, you're thinking about that. What training materials? If you are the one hosting, don't forget to include your venue, your food, any gifts. Make sure you're including those. And then any sort of documentation, post-workshop report, that's very valuable. And with those survey questions that I mentioned at the beginning, or the feedback at the end that I'll share with my clients, that's a huge value add. You would think that people are asking some of these questions. They're not. And so in addition to giving an Enneagram training, you've just given the leadership, 30 responses of challenges they're having or things that they would want to know about. I mean, that is really valuable. And then if you're doing any sort of outsourcing, VA, any sort of getting help, make sure you're factoring that in. And then when you're kind of thinking about, okay, I want to make sure that I'm including all of these things, that's your cost. And then you want to be thinking about, okay, well, how much do I want to make? I want to build, I want to be profitable doing trainings and workshops. And maybe in the beginning, you're not, maybe your first, 1, 2, 3, you're practicing, but eventually you want to get there where you're making a profit. And I actually love Mark Cuban. I don't know if you've heard of Mark Cuban's Cost Plus drug company, but he says, hey, we sell our products at cost, and then we add 15% because we got to make a profit. We got to pay our taxes. We got to pay our health insurance. We got to live. And so I find that helpful to think about once I've, landed on a cost. What do I want my profit to be? It may not be 15 for you. It may be more, but remembering to add that in. And so you're not just simply covering your costs. Couple of other considerations when you're thinking about what to charge. Are you charging per attendee or for the workshop itself? And so however many people can join. Are you using the same workshop multiple times, or are you having to customize for a particular client? Then you want to charge more in that situation. And then this is really important, and that you will feel this. You may have already been there. What is your resentment price? So what is the lowest price that someone can pay you for this workshop where you won't start to be resentful towards them? It's like anything less than that, it's gonna not feel good. And we'll probably all do that once or twice, and then hopefully learn that lesson. But we all have that. And some of those considerations that we talked about, the couple slides above or in front of this will be a part of that. But what is that? It's not worth your time anymore. You're going to start to feel taken advantage of. That's really important. And then sometimes it just helps to be like, okay, great, I got all this, but what are people charging? So here are a couple of examples that I've seen. You might charge, maybe somebody has a mastermind group, somewhere between 250, 500. Maybe you're doing some sort of association. I actually had the Pork Association of Kentucky reach out to me. So you just never know what association is going to want a workshop, but something around $1,500 you could propose. I know a lot of people who also work with colleges and universities. I don't know, here's a 3-part sample pricing. Maybe you're working with a large corporation and they want you for a full day. I've seen anywhere between 7,000 to 10,000 for something like that. So that'll kind of give you a range, and then you can go back to this slide and start to think about, okay, what do I want to take away? What do I want to actually charge more for to get you in a price? And the thing is, you can always change it. You can always raise your rates. You can always tweak them. You can take on, 1 or 2 pro bono, or, if you have a nonprofit client. So you can play with it, but just make sure that you're covering your costs. I want you to take care of yourself as well. And then the last part of this is consistency of food. And so the only way to be consistent, like I said, is to do it. And so, I think, I don't know if we have any stand-up comedy fans in the virtual room. I am always inspired by comedians because they will but whenever we see someone on a Netflix special, they have done that routine hundreds of times, probably at that point. They've practiced, they've listened to the audience, what lands, what doesn't, and they've taken that out. And so again, the only way to really be consistent and to really hone in on it is just to keep doing it. And you're gonna, not do something great. I get feedback. I get negative feedback occasionally. It's like, oh, you could have done this better, and that's okay. And some of it, it's like, okay, it was just that person. I'm not going to take that to heart. But sometimes I'm like, that's a great point. I could tweak that. And so I always try and think like a comedian. I always like to ask for feedback. Sometimes I don't want to read it. I always get anxiety when I go back and read the feedback forms, because I want everything to be perfect. I want everybody to like it. But some of the best changes that I have made that enhance future experiences has come from people's recommendations. And then when you start to really hone it in, whatever niche you're in, whatever industry you're serving, you're going to build a reputation. People are going to want to refer you. People are going to want to have you back for a part 2, for a part 3, for a part 4. Hey, how can we work more with you? Can we work with you on an individual level? And so rather than constantly having to be on that hamster wheel trying to find more clients, we have an opportunity to go deeper with the ones that we've, wowed with an awesome experience. So,
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
yeah.
Our time is up. I'm so sorry. Are you going to be really quick or can I move?
Yep, we can move on.
Okay, I am so sorry to do this, but we're on such a tight schedule and we only have everyone for a certain amount of time. But if you want to hear more from Sarah, please reach out to her. Jean, do we have her information down? Okay, thank you. Also, she said, take a shot of the screen. FYI, you can go to our Mighty Networks platform and all of our segments are there from day one. So you will find Sarah in Tips of the Trade, and you will find every single biz dev there and every single main speaker there. So go to our Mighty Networks page and you can find more of Sarah there. Now I'd like to introduce, Sarah, thank you, by the way. Thank you so much. Valuable information. Now I'd like to introduce our Tips of the Trade, CMO Jackie Voles, who provide us with a little tidbit for this month.
Email marketing, social media, what's better? My name is Jackie Voles, and let me give you some tips on why email marketing might be the way to go. 3 different reasons. Number 1, social media platforms are making it that much more difficult to reach our audiences organically. The algorithms are constricting the numbers in our audience that are actually getting our messages. Number 2, engagement. It's hard to really know who's engaged, when they're being engaged, how they're engaging, and honestly, just to manage that one-to-one relationship. And number 3, owning the database. Because social media platforms kind of control our database, through email marketing, we own our database. We get to manage and control the message. We have that one-to-one relationship. We can see who's really engaging. I know sometimes we feel like I get so many emails in my inbox. Why would I want to do that to a client? Guess what? They're getting so many social messages anyway, and you have no idea who's engaging with your messages. In email marketing, you have the database. No one can ever take that database away from you. Don't worry about the unsubscribes. You'll get a few, but that's okay. You're going to engage that much more closely with those that want to engage with you, and you'll build that trusted relationship. So if you haven't been building your email database, please do. Jackie Voles, have a beautiful day. See you next month.
Thanks, Jackie. And as I said, you can find all the tips of the trade from day one on our Mighty Networks platform. And now to our main event. I'd like to introduce to you to Valerie Atkin. Valerie has more than 45 years of experience providing consulting, coaching, facilitation, and customized learning solutions. She's trained with various Enneagram teachers that include Don Riso, Russ Hudson, Ginger, who we've had here also, Jerry Wagner we've had, and Claudio Naranjo himself. She currently coaches student pursuing professional development certification with CP Academy, B. Chestnut, and Uranio Payas School. She served at the as marketing chair of the IEA Board of Directors and worked in support of the Enneagram Prison Project. Her corporate and nonprofit clients have included Caterpillar, Herman Miller, Art Prize, National Heritage Academies, Columbia Forest Products, and Pfizer, among others. And now we have the privilege of having her share her wisdom, her journey, and her experience with our community today. I'd like to welcome Valerie Atkin.
Well, I'm pleased to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. First thing you asked about renaming around with a wing. And what's interesting is being Uranio, and as Mary said, I've studied for 100 years with a lot of people. They focus much more on subtype, which I have come to believe is just an essential element around growth path. And that wing is secondary. So for me, I'm a self-preservation 3, and my wings have bounced out over the years. So that's sort of the approach that we take. And I'm happy to answer any questions now or later about CP Academy. I'm going to ask you to participate. So if you have a question, raise your hand. We've got a lot to cover. But I can also answer questions later on if it's something very specific. So I'm going to start. I'll give you the first question. Where do I begin? So many people that I have coached and worked with and have done similar presentations at the IEA a number of times ask that, where do I begin? And the easiest answer for me is to do your own work. I don't believe that we can offer the Enneagram until we have deeply worked with it ourselves and understand all that it has to offer, and be able to describe. At some point, folks may ask how you've used it, and you need to be able to answer that. So if we're looking at creating an Enneagram experience for others, that may be a workshop, that may be coaching, that may be therapy. It could be any of those applications. The first thing I encourage people to do is look back. So pick a date in the future, May 16th, 2026. And how will you be spending your time? Who will your clients be? What challenges will you have overcome? It's a neuro-linguistic programming technique called creating a well-formed outcome. And what we found is the more you can envision it from having succeeded, the more you're able to identify some of the blocks that keep you from moving forward. So very, very good exercise. If you want the short version, you can answer these 3 questions. Getting really clear on what is it that I want? What is it that I would settle for? And what don't I want? So looking at those, and I will get you the slides if you'd like them too. What's interesting about these 3 questions is that if the first 2 aren't the same, you're selling yourself short. You're compromising before you're even out of the gate. And so this is a quote that has haunted me and haunts me still. The space for what you want is being taken up by what you've settled for instead. So what is it that when I'm not doing what I think I need to be doing in order to build my Enneagram offering, what am I doing instead? What's getting in the way? What's slowing me down? The other thing that I think is really important to consider is what I call the magic word. And if you're familiar with Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset, she would say the magic word is yet. So when you find yourself saying, well, I don't have the clients I want yet, to really, and again, from a neuroscience standpoint, a different part of your brain awakens when you go at it from a yet mindset versus from a I just don't have it mindset. So today, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about your way in, whether it's to a company, a nonprofit, a individual coaching client, your offer, not specifically what it is, but how to phrase it. Your inner landscape, what are the goals, stories, demons running around in your head? And then the outer landscape, how do you get your offer out there? And doesn't look like I can have the, I'm going to turn chat on just in case you've got questions as we go. Okay, there we go. In my experience, there are two ways in. You can sell or offer a few things to a lot of people, or a lot of things to a few people. My practice, as Mary said, I founded my practice in 1990 and worked in consulting firms and corporations before that. For me, offering a lot of things to a few people has worked out very, very well. So I work now pretty much exclusively on retainer and get deeply embedded in an organization. Others have a variety of products that they want to sell to a lot of different people. The other way to look at the two ways in is, are you offering pure Enneagram, or are you offering Enneagram and application? Both have value. And, I know various teachers feel differently about it. Some say you have to have an application. Others say, I have not found that to be true. The Enneagram for me has been a fabulous product to offer. And as a friend of mine, client, now friend, said, the Enneagram is like carpenter ants. If you get into an organization with it, it will spread, because the value is so profound. If you want to think about applications, here you go. There are just about, the Enneagram can be applied in so many different ways. And I have worked with it in every single one of these over the past 40 plus years. And I have therefore developed content related to each of those. So there's pretty much not a topic a client can ask for that I haven't got some kind of content, exercises, growth plans to work with them on. And what's interesting about that is I have never developed a workshop without a client. So some people spend a lot of time developing materials and, PowerPoints and videos without a client. For me, everything I've done has been driven off of a client need and a client request. And that is how I've built my intellectual property, so that I then have it available to share with others. So your offer. The reason this is a small child is that's how I felt when I first started offering the Enneagram. It's hard. We're putting ourselves out there. We're putting our beliefs. And those of us that love the Enneagram love it. So if the fear of rejection is there, it's the fear of someone telling us that our kid is ugly. Because it's something that we're all so invested in and believe so much. So really, when we talk about your offer, for me, it's what promise are you making? What is it that you believe this person, the ways in which they can benefit? And we'll talk a little more about that. First and foremost, you have to be able to describe what this thing is. What is this? There are a variety of different ways to do it. Here are a few, and I'm always curious for more. So if there are some that you think are really useful, I'd love you to put them in the chat so folks can benefit from them too. I think the cleanest, quickest one I've found is that it's a dynamic personality system offering awareness and growth. If you're talking to somebody who wants more information, here's another more specific next layer down. If someone says, well, how do you do that? how does it do that? It's got in-depth descriptions of types, patterns, thinking, feeling, behaving. I will often describe the Enneagram as your operating system that has an impact, like a computer operating system that plays in the background all the time. And it informs everything it defines everything you see, feel, think, and say, and it often undermines those things if we're not aware of what it is. If you're working with a 5 and you want a more detailed description, here's Jerry Wagner's, and I won't read it, but if you're familiar with his book, The 9 Lenses, that's where this is from. And I love, Jerry always has fabulous definitions. So once we've defined what the Enneagram is, because a lot of people haven't heard of it, then it's a function of what your offer is. What is the headline that you are going to share? Some people will talk about you need a tagline. Mine is "Together we grow." And I will often say, if you're curious and you want to grow, we need to talk. And you'll find that on my website. That lots of folks share and talk about an elevator speech. For me, an elevator speech is just to get them to say, "Tell me more." It's not to describe the whole enchilada. It's just to describe, just to pique their interest. So mine is, focusing on the human side of the enterprise. And people will like, well, how do you do that? The quote on Sarah's slide about parents, that could be an elevator speech. It might be a piece of research. It's anything that will get people to say, "Tell me how you do that." A real quick formula, if you want one, is this. And I think part of the challenge is some folks will focus on the value they gleaned from the Enneagram versus the value that the person you're talking to or the organization you're talking to might glean. So always keeping the offer phrased from the standpoint of who's receiving it, even though, we're the ones that have spent some time on it. So thoughts, questions about that? Throw them in the chat if you do. I'd love to make this as specific as possible. So if we move to looking at your inner landscape, and here's that little girl again, and she's there because it really, for me, again, when I started this a long time ago, I felt like, have I learned enough? Do I know enough? I've been doing it for 20 years. And as Mary said, I've studied with the best of the best, and I'm still learning every single day. And that for me is the richness of the Enneagram. I often say I have the attention span of a 5-year-old, and the Enneagram is the only thing that has kept my attention for a very long time because of its depth and its breadth. So what we're looking to do is synthesize head, heart, and gut as we take our offer to the world. And if we do that and we do it well, we are centered and can provide the best support and service. So if we look at what are, many of us live in our head, even if we're not head types, even if that's not our dominant center. But we really want to engage that executive function to look at what are all the possible brainstorming ideas, and what's a myriad of ways we could bring our offer to the world, and expand that. Talk to people, find out those who have done it, find out those who might want it, and just start having conversations, test it. And remember, the biggest part is the head game we play on ourselves. And that is negative self-talk. What are you telling yourself? I love this. Don't be a victim of negative self-talk. Remember, you are listening. the game that my negative self-talk when I started is, oh my God, there are just so many coaches out there. There's so many trainers out there. How am I ever gonna break into that? And then I started thinking, there are millions of doctors out there and they're making money and working, there are millions of other things out there. So that was one of my big blocks, was how do I possibly do that? If we look at our heart, what is it that excites us? What does your heart desire? And this is where we get out of logic and into passion. What is it that lights you up? And I don't mean necessarily relative to your Enneagram offer. I mean generally in life. If I look at what lights me up, the thing that lights me up the most are these three. Got one more coming in June. So it is, what do I feel when I'm with them? What do we talk about? What is it that I take away when I feel like I've really contributed to my relationship with them? I look at transferring that to the work that I do. And I've worked with the Enneagram from everyone to an entry-level mechanic to CEOs to nonprofit boards. So the whole broad range. And when I had one client, and numerous clients talk about the value, but the one that for me was most poignant was this gentleman who'd never done a whole lot of personal growth work or even sort of looked at it. And he just said, the work we have done in this leadership series on the Enneagram has made me a better leader, a better husband, a better father, a better man. That's the potential that we've got if we come from our hearts, if we come from the place that really lights us up. And then there's the old gut. So what does the gut have to tell us? If we can cultivate that gut intelligence, which is just enormous, and we tend to ignore, I know for me personally that I have for many, even longer than that years, mistaken my intuition for anxiety. So what I do now is if I find something making me anxious, it's like, what is it telling me? If I can get into my intuition, I can bypass that amygdala and that fight and flight reaction. I can really know, what am I sensing? And do I have a whole body yes around this? Head, heart, and gut. Am I really aligned? And I love this. When you don't know how you know, but you know, and you knew, that's all you needed to know. So it really is, if I have this inkling, I'm not sure where it comes from, not sure what it means, but it really does talk to me, then I know that I need to pay attention to that. The thing that gets in our way is fear. If we can breathe deeply into those fears and really look at what is the block, we can then begin to, either with a thought partner or on our own, sort of disassemble them. And that's something that becomes very important. So when the fears show up, I love this. Well, let me back up a minute. Too often when we talk often in the Enneagram about head, heart, and gut. And I wish we talked more about gut, heart, and head. I wish we started with the gut. We started with, what is our intuition about what I should be doing here, what I should be offering, what this client might need, then checking in with my heart, and then finally using my head in order to activate and respond, but not to start. I mean, I think for so often with clients that I coach, if they start in their head, they stay in their head. If I start my gut, I find it so much easier to align. So this is just a quick mechanism, and I would attribute it if I could remember where I found it, but I didn't make it up. Whenever I find myself getting caught up in concern, obviously slow down and breathe. How might I make a wise choice? That's the gut intuition. What do I know for sure versus what am I making up? How do I feel about it? What do I want? And then what is it telling me to do? What is my gut and heart telling me to do? And then looking to perceive the best possibility. You can't authentically offer what you don't believe you have. So concerns, we've got time here. Let's talk a little bit. I would love to have this be more interactive and not just one way. So if anybody wants to come off mute or raise their hand, questions?
Hi, I wanted to say welcome, Val. It's so nice. I'm so glad that you accepted our invite. And I just love learning from you. You've been doing this for so long, and I always find the people that have been in this field for, I think somebody mentioned 10 years was a sweet spot in the writing course I'm taking for people who are wanting to write. That's a nice insight. There's something that happens with all the experience, and one of the things I just wanted to add to your piece on the elevator speech was that I wrote it in there, but the audience, it's important. I wanted you to say something more about it. Important to know your audience, right? You're talking to a nun, you're talking to a HR director, you're talking to a college. They're all different, right?
What's interesting, I don't know. I think for me, the what I feel I bring, it applies universally. I mean, their issues are going to be different for sure. And my response to their issues will be different based on their needs. But what I bring is general enough that I don't find, I mean, what I describe as the value of the Enneagram. It's not, I'm offering a workshop or I'm going to give you 6 coaching sessions. It's what is the value of this amazing tool? And if it's a situation where their trust is eroded in a team, we'll talk about the value of the Enneagram and how understanding each person's type helps you understand what their trust mechanism is. So I define and work with trust from the standpoint of looking at it from integrity, competence, and benevolence. And I will often have people stack rank those. And there's pretty consistent relative to type, not always, but 3s and 1s want somebody who's competent. 2s want somebody who's benevolent. I mean, you can look at those. 1s off to integrity is important. If you're dealing with a 1-to-1 or sexual 6, they need all 3. So there are ways in which I think the Enneagram can be beautifully applied through type structure to any application. And so I'll sometimes use those examples. Another example that I'll use around conflict is, and this is the truth, I have had dozens and dozens of times where people have called and said, we've got these 2 department heads that don't get along, or we have these 2, I've done a lot of work with schools. We have a principal and an assistant principal that don't get along. And so I will figure out their type, and I use Being Aranio's Compass assessment, their questionnaire. I've done, you may be familiar with Dirk's IEQ. I looked the other day, I've done 1,002 IEQ reports. I've now done about 600 Compass reports, and I find the Compass report itself to be a more useful tool. But I will often use that, have a short one-on-one conversation to affirm the type, to feel like we're really sure we're in the same ballpark. I ask them not to tell me anything about content. All I want to do is figure out type. And then I get them together and I talk through what are the very predictable friction points between these two types. And every single time I've done it, they are like, okay, that's it.
Yeah, I know.
Didn't have anything to do with the content, had to do with the fact that I'm a 3, you're a 1. When we talk about agendas, I'm looking at sort of what we want to accomplish, and you're going, well, from 8 to 8:05, this is what we're going to do. So you know, there are so many different ways that can be, you know, that matters.
Well,
Does
and
that make
it makes a difference, as what you're saying is when you get deeper into the conversation with the people, clearly. But the elevator thing is so big for so many of our members and so many of us. I've been working with the Enneagram for 22 years. I gave a talk this morning before, you know, coming here today for the local Rotary. But what I think is what I'm trying to get at and trying to get your opinion on is when you're talking with somebody initially and you feel there's an opening there, but your language is, you know, you are heavy in business. I am leaning more and getting more and more into business. But when I'm talking to an association or Unity Church's board, the language for me is different. At least my intuition tells me that it's better if it's one way with this group. It's still about the passion. It's still about much of what you're saying. But so it's interesting that, you know, you're saying, well, no, I don't really, mine tends to be sort of the same for any group I'm with.
Well, and it, you know, certainly through the lens of emotional intelligence, and the research is, you know, irrefutable that self-awareness is a bigger contribution to success than education, experience, or education, experience, or intelligence. And if anybody challenges me on that, I'll always say, well, you know, have you ever worked with someone who like has a great, you know, a number of degrees, very well educated, is super smart, has worked in the field for a long time, and is just a jerk? You know, it's like really hard to work with. And I think all of us have in one way or another. So it really becomes a function of what are we looking at? And the other thing is, and we'll talk about this more in the next section, but where's the pull? Are they pulling in because they're curious, or am I trying to convince them? And I think that's a balance that we've got to look at, and we'll talk about that in the next section.
Sounds great. Somebody might else have.
Yeah. One question I love, are you saying what you feel about your work is the way you feel after being with your grandchildren? Yeah. I mean, there are times when it is. There are times when I leave and I feel really gratified. I feel, you know, it just feels good. Now, do I love my work as much as I love my grandchildren? If I have to pick where I'm going to put my time? No, I just got back from Seattle and 2 of them are out there. But yeah, for me, you know, that is it. I have to, especially, I mean, I'm 72. I don't have to be doing this anymore. And I do it because I love it. I do it because I love it. And I think with anything we do, if we don't bring that passion and love to it, then we're selling ourselves short. Other questions so far? Oh, Jean, I may have gotten it from Cindy Wigglesworth. That may be possible. Thank you. Thank you. I will add that to my attribution. I do not like, I mean, I think there's so so much in the Enneagram is in the public domain. And it's, I think, so important. Like Bea and Aranio are amazingly generous with their information on podcasts and on their website. So it's, the attribution feels pretty important. So let's take a look at the place that most people start getting crunchy. And that is if we're talking about the outer landscape. How do I get my offer out there? You know, expertise doesn't matter if they don't know you're in business, or if they, so how do I actually do it? This is an important distinction, the distinction between marketing and sales. When I submitted my first proposal for an IEA conference on this content, I called it Selling the Enneagram. And I was at that point, I don't think I was on the board yet. So this is probably 20 years ago. And the individual that we all know well came back and said, no, well, we're going to change your title to Marketing the Enneagram. And I went, what do you mean? And she said, well, people are really skittish about sales. And I went, no, they're really very, very different. And she goes, well, we need to change it to marketing. And I said, are you changing anyone else's title? It's like, well, no. And I said, okay, well, we either do it Selling the Enneagram, or I'd like to withdraw my proposal, because marketing is about increasing the awareness of your offer and connecting with prospects. You heard about email marketing. We've got social media now that we didn't have when I started doing all this. And it is very different. Selling is the process, from my standpoint, to facilitate joint decision-making and co-create authentic relationships. That's my definition of selling. So marketing helps people find you. Selling helps people choose you. And really understanding the difference is important. And we do tend to, my work started in instructional design. And then I started doing training, and then I started doing facilitating, and then I started coaching. But I worked for a consulting firm, and I was originally an instructional designer and then a trainer. And the CEO of this consulting firm decided I would be good in sales. And I was the person that had to deliver on what the salespeople sold. And inevitably they overpromised, and I was scrambling. And it's like, I don't want to go to the dark side. I want nothing to do with selling. And so we would go on joint calls together, and he started turning over the call to me and go, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. And I finally got to the point where I said, if you do it again, I'm just going to excuse myself to go to the ladies' room, and I'm not coming back, because I do not want to do this. And over time, I finally got to the point where I thought, if I ever want to be in business for myself, I need to feel confident about this. And what really rings true for me is this: we are all selling all the time. Whether it is a doctor who's describing a treatment protocol that he or she would like you to consider, whether it is your 16-year-old trying to convince you why she ought to have the car on Saturday night, we are selling all the time. And for me, it's the process of helping others discover something of value. So getting your head around that is hugely important. If I look at what I consider the sales process to be, these are the steps. So visioning possibility, filling the funnel. I got to have people to talk to. How do I reach out? How do I get folks? Creating interest and emotional connection, discovering needs, matching those needs to my offer, uncovering any objections or areas of concern, defining our agreement, negotiating and gaining agreement, and closing the deal, and then deepening the relationship. Mary, you had a question?
Yes, I do. So you're speaking to all different types here. And I know the advice you're giving, it's being intaken by, all our different lenses. And as you're saying, we all have to sell. That is the most difficult part for me. Not the selling part, the closing part. And I'm a type 2. I have a tough time asking for any kind of money. And even if someone offers money, it's like, no, I'm not going to take money. it's like,
Perfect.
what advice can you offer us when we're out there, busting our buns, really need to make this sale, but we have a tough time depending on our type?
Yeah, perfect. This is like the perfect lead in. I can't even believe it. If you look at the list there, let's play with it. So it's too easy to say 3s are natural salespeople because they can read a room, because they are very focused on accomplishing things. True, that's true. 3s suck at some of these steps in the process. They're not good at them. So each type brings something. So, and I really would love folks to participate in this, whether it's in chat or just coming off mute. Which types, if we're looking sort of at standard edition, not looking at wings, not looking at subtypes, which type do you think has skills around visioning possibility? Yeah, I would say 7 for sure. Who do you think is best going out, knocking on doors, and finding prospects? Yeah. All right, Mary's playing. Who else? 3, 8, 2, absolutely. Those are for sure. How about creating interest and emotional connection?
2.
I think 2 is good. 4 for
4.
sure.
4.
Yep. How about uncovering needs? Yeah.
2.
2 is brilliant at that. I mean, it's sort of using their shadow for good because they're so focused on everyone else's needs. How about then matching needs to your offer? Who do you think would do that well?
I would say 3 and 6.
3s are good, 6s are good at that. When we talk about discovering needs, 5s, it's really interesting. I was regional vice president of sales for a consulting firm. The best salesperson who ever worked for me was a 5.
Wow.
And part of the reason is he didn't talk too much. But he was really brilliant at uncovering objections and addressing them. Who else would be good at addressing concerns, uncovering and addressing concerns? Yeah, I mean, 6s are fabulous at it. Yeah, I hear someone who says my dad's 5 and is super good at sales. What does he sell, Kate?
Okay, so he's in the Hall of Fame for Edward Jones.
Whoa.
The top award you can get is the Jim Harrod Award. So yeah, he sold $1 million in commissions in the 80s. So he's kind of,
Wow.
he is reserved, but he is so good at numbers. He writes numbers all the time. So yeah, he can be very precise in his offer. Yeah, it can be very convincing.
And it's so interesting because that is the one type when I talk about selling the Enneagram that people go, well, not 5s. It's like, oh, contraire. They are very good at it. They are they have, part of it is that they have a depth of knowledge. They don't go out until they know what they're talking about, and they can then share. So how about defining your agreement and the contract? Who do you think would be good at that, negotiating?
Ones.
Once you're going to be really precise, they're going to want to be clear that you know what you're getting and that I know what I'm offering. And that is the basis of a good, strong relationship, is really being able to do that and do that well. And then, you know, we talked about deepening the relationship. Who'd be good at that?
Fours. Twos.
Mhm.
Sevens. Nines. I think nines haven't been mentioned, but nines can be so clear about attention to nuance and
Yeah.
what is needed, and they are about providing the, you know, the solution to what is needed. So I think they
Nines can be really good at matching needs to the offer. They can be good at discovering needs because they want to include everybody's opinion. They can also be good at, as you say, deepening the relationship. And for me, that is the final step. And that's how I end up. So I've worked with Herman Miller for 20 years. I worked with Caterpillar for 14. And part of it is because for me, the objective is not to sell a workshop, it's to create a relationship. And everything I do is in service to that. And if they're asking for something that I don't think is going to serve them, I will say no. Or if there's somebody else I think that will serve them better, I will refer them. And every time I've done that, it's what goes around comes around. And it may not be they come back to me, but it may be that they refer someone who comes to me that's a better fit. So it really, really works. And part of what happens here, and this again is something we can play more deeply with at another date if anybody wants to, really looking at how you feel in each of those processes. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ones that trip people up. The first is, who is your ideal client? Think about the clients you have or the clients you fantasize about having, and what do they look like? What do they like? For me, curiosity is number one. I want someone who's inquisitive. I know that we will do well if I've got that. They have to be serious about what they want to do. And whether that's a team or an individual, I am too bloody old to be anybody's check the box or try and talk you into something. If you're not showing up. And it's so interesting because, early on, I was, used to joke about being a 2.5 because my leaning into 2 was so significant. And I would, particularly if I was using a questionnaire, they'd take the questionnaire, then we'd have a conversation. And I would start asking all these questions, and I was doing all the work. Now I've designed a questionnaire that or a worksheet that aligns with the questionnaire, to help them extract the elements that are relevant for them, that they resonate with, the places where they don't see themselves relative to that type. And it, takes them maybe an hour, but it's like they're doing the work. So as a 3, being a self-preservation 3 with a lot of 2, I can over function like that. That's sort of my go-to. So I have now created a continuum for myself. So at the far end is being considerate. Then there's being thoughtful. Then there's being generous. Then there's being resourceful. All good attributes of a 3. Then we fall into the low side of 2 and 4, which is over-functioning, self-sacrifice, and martyr. And so when I look at a request from an individual or a company, it's like, what lights up on that continuum for me? But the serious about what they want to do, and finally having a sense of humor. Again, I know for a fact that if it is fun, if we hold it lightly, we are more likely to learn. So those are the elements for me. So filling the funnel, this is the corker for most people. And it is a stream of consciousness to answer these questions and to brainstorm the ideas. First is, who do you know? You're in the middle of the circle. Who are the people that you know well that you could go and talk to about what you want to do? And these don't have to be potential clients, but these are just people where you are beginning to, you've thrown the stone in and now we're going to ripple it. So who do you know? And then who did they know? So once you've been able to talk to them about it, cycling back and saying, who do you know, you've had some time to think about this. Is there anyone you know that I should be talking to? And so the Herman Miller, which is the longest term client I've had, I got through the guy that renovated our bathrooms. You know, we moved to Saugatuck, Michigan, we renovated bathrooms, and Herman Miller, I knew, was a fabulous company that was right up the road, and I didn't know anybody that worked there. So I just started asking everybody I met, do you know anybody who works at Herman Miller? And the guy who did my bathrooms said, yeah, my next door neighbor works in their IT department. And I said, would you mind asking him if I could talk to him? And he goes, no, not a problem. So I talked to Glenn and I said to Glenn, this is what I do. I'm, local resource. Who in your organization should I be talking to? And he goes, boy, I don't have a clue, but I'll find out. And I thought, I'm never going to hear from this guy. And like 3 days later, he called with 4 names. Well, here are people you could talk. I mean, I said, could be HR, could be head of a department, could be, and that was the start of a 20-year relationship. The most recent one that I got was, I had a marvelous trip. My husband and I went to Spain and Portugal last fall. And I had 2 episodes of kidney stones, which is a lot of fun. And if you haven't tried it, and if one more person says to me, it's like transition labor, I am going to throat punch them, because it's like, it is, but I got a baby out of that. What are you offering here? So I was on the phone with my doctor at the University of Michigan. We were doing video calls, and I said, I travel for work. And he just said, what do you do? And I gave him a brief description of what I did. And the next time I talked to him, he said, no, wait, you're the one who works with organizations, right? And I said, yeah. And he goes, because we're really focusing in on culture here. He goes, would you be willing, when you come for your appointment, to have lunch with the head of the urology department and me? And it was like, okay. And my daughter's like, only you, Mom, will get work out of getting kidney stones. But the point is, there are opportunities everywhere if you just ask. So who do you know? Who do they know? Who did you used to know? Look back across your timeline, places where you worked, people that you have not been in close contact with, or you are in contact, but you haven't updated. Describe to them what you're hoping to do, what you can offer. Ask everybody in the Enneagram community how they find clients. And they'll have stories like the guy that did the bathroom. I mean, there are ideas out there that are marvelous. Strategic partnerships. Are there people who offer something that aligns with what you offer? So is there somebody, like I had a strategic partnership with a guy who sold the Leadership Challenge. I have a strategic partnership now with the folks who sell Toyota's lean manufacturing. He focuses on the problem-solving piece. I focus on the people piece with the Enneagram. Social media obviously is a big one. I've got the name of somebody for you that is trained in at that, fully certified in the professional track at the Chestnut Pies Academy, and she's working with people who want to get started, websites, branding, social media, and she's fabulous. Questions about that? Okay. Yeah, Mary.
So this is great. Love everything you're sharing. Most people, when they're starting, it's one person to do everything that's taken to start a business.
Right.
Where there's only so many hours in the day,
Right.
where do you focus your attention?
I focus my attention on finding a client. I mean, I mean, literally, I've never, as I said earlier, never designed anything on spec.
Thank you.
And it's just do it, just do it.
So today, a lot of people are focusing on social media because they think, oh, we have to be out there. We have to have likes. We have to have a big following. But that doesn't close a sale. That doesn't.
Never had it. I've never, I mean, I have a website, which is essentially a digital brochure, just because you have to sort of be legit. That for me, and you can add so much more information. If you look at my website, I used to have one that was very businessy oriented. When we moved up north and I hit 70, I thought, screw it. I'm just putting together a website that's this is who I am. This is what I like. If, let me know if you want to work together. And I'm at this point not taking any new clients. So for me, it's not a sales mechanism, but it is something where they can get a sense of who I am. I mean, there are a couple places where I crack jokes, and one guy's like, whoa, you really want to have jokes on your website? It's like, if they don't have a sense of humor, I don't want to work with them. So if that turns people away, I'm down with that. No problem. The other way is, what are ways you're going to let people get to know you? You can offer a pilot. You can do something in a couple of hours that can be really interesting. A lunch and learn, I've done those. A short coaching session, many people do that. Offer a typing interview, or a free questionnaire, an assessment and a debrief. Working with schools, churches, nonprofits, the people who are on nonprofit boards have real jobs. And so, I mean, I've been on a number of nonprofit boards with some pretty high-powered people who then want to go do something in their organization. So some of it works that way. And then the bottom line for me is, I used to say this to my kids all the time: if you don't ask, they can't say yes. And we're so often afraid to ask. So welcome the bumps. This is what your plan is. This is what life looks like. It is not, not smooth sailing. Maintain your momentum. I find allowing finite wallowing. If I get disappointed, I give myself 10 to 15 minutes, and then I start to reflect on what I've learned. Call a friend if you need to. Revisit your outcome. What are you striving for? Revisit that well-formed outcome. And pick another micro goal, tiny thing, something that just gets the Newtonian ball rolling. I truly believe this, and the Enneagram for me is the most powerful example of how we are each gifted in a unique and important way. And what are your attributes? What do you own? What are the strengths that you own, and how are you lending that into your offering? For me, humor is essential. Everybody knows that if I'm not like cracking jokes, they better clear the room because it's about to get ugly. So that's something, what is it that you bring? And I love this, Walt Disney. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Maybe he was a 3 too. I'm not sure. So we've got a couple minutes. Anything else that when people say, what about DISC and MBTI? If someone says, oh, well, we've already done Myers-Briggs, I'll go, great, you're ready for the Enneagram. You know, no matter what it is they've done before, it's like, good, that's fabulous. Now you're ready for this.
That's great. That's great. Valerie, I'm gonna say if we can take one more question because we actually, I don't know how it happened, but we've gone the full hour. So you made it so much fun. So one more question, if there's anyone. I think we may be good. We may
Well,
be
you know what? I would love her to talk about pricing, to take the last minute, because I think that's difficult for people to know that what to do that when they're brand new or within the first 2 years and you've had a handful of work. What is your suggestion?
Two things about pricing that for me are sort of primary rules. One is the first question is, what's your budget? So often we do not ask that question. And sometimes people are sort of a little reticent about it. Sometimes people go, well, it's $5,000. Well, great. You were planning on charging 3. You know, I mean, it's just like, why would you not? And the second is never, never, never reduce the price without reducing the offering. Don't bargain. So if I go in and I say it's $3,000 and they say we can't afford it, then I might say, okay, well then let's cut the one-on-one sessions down to 45 minutes instead of an hour. Inevitably, they come back and find the money.
Right.
You know, so that I think is what's really important. And you know, I loved when Sarah was talking about your resentment price. I talk about what is your fantasy price? Especially when you're beginning, what do you think you should charge? Add 20% and ask for it.
You never know. See, that's so scary to me.
I know.
As somebody who was raised Catholic, and then I got all this in Loyola with the.
Yeah, I get it.
I
I just had, I got a request from Accenture, a big deal team at Accenture. I went through the same thing. I've been doing this 110 years and I go through the same thing. And I finally just said, well, I'm not really taking new clients. I said, and she goes, well, can you just send me a proposal? And this, I love this woman, so I'll work with her. And I said, I haven't written a proposal in 100 years. And she goes, just send me a number. And I'm like, well, shit, I can't like not do that. So there's a river cruise that I want to take. And so the number was the cost of the river cruise for my husband and me and airfare.
That's awesome.
I mean, so there's no logic to that,
No,
except
but there is 40 years
my,
experience there. So
this is my fantasy price, but you can do it anytime. What's the worst that can happen?
okay.
You know, you're not going to grow a second head. It's okay. You'll be fine. Try it.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Good question,
Can
Rosemary.
only say no, right? They can only say no. And then, like you said, you shift. So it's been working.
And then you come back and say, what's the issue? What's the concern? And I will sometimes say, I understand you're saying no. What would you have said yes to?
Well, I had just gotten somebody that said business has been soft and the first thing that goes is enrichment stuff. So that's why, but call me back in September. So I said, okay, I will, but that was the issue.
Well, and what's really interesting to me, and the best line that I ever heard, and again, I wish I could attribute it, is somebody said, well, business is really soft. And, what if I train them and they, what if I train them and they leave? And the question I would ask is, what if you don't and they stay?
That's right. That's great. And on that note, I'm really sorry, but this has to come back. But I do want to share one thing. While you were talking, it came to mind that my very, very, very first workshop was with you.
Oh, get out of town.
I swear.
Oh, I love that.
Just
I love
realized
that.
it. So I'm glad that our paths have crossed again. And thank you.
Yes, that's
Thank
wonderful.
so much. Thank you so much for joining us. What a wealth of knowledge, experience that Valerie has shared with us today. If you want to find out more, her link is in the chat and we will share it. And as always, go to our Mighty Networks because this entire presentation will be there within days. Right,
Thanks,
Jean?
Val. Thank you so much for answering my call. Love
Yeah.
ya.
Yes, thank you.
Anytime, Rosemary, and yes to the boat ride and the wine. We both live up north Michigan.
Okay, you and I, we'll see you. I will be in touch. All right. love ya.
So
Take
next
care.
month we have Tracy Baker Lawrence, who is coming all the way from Australia in the middle of the night to present to us. And she's just a sweetheart and also a wealth of knowledge. So please join us on June 20th for her presentation, which is psychological in nature. And what else is next, Stephanie? Yes, Biz Dev. We got Brian Keltner, from the founder of Elevator, who is a similar community to ours, but all business focused on developing your basically your network. So he will really be adding a bit to the conversation we had today on how growing our network will grow our business. So please come for both that biz dev, and we've got such amazing presenters coming up in the next few months. And to tell you the truth, we are completely booked till December. So we are very excited and feel very blessed that our presenters will are willing to come and share their experience with us all. So these are our upcoming presenters. You can only register for the next month. We've had some people say, oh, I'm trying to register for, Frederick or someone down the line. You can only register one at a time if you aren't a member. If you are a member, you will receive your link through an email or on our Mighty Network site. So do not fear if you're a member, you will always receive your link. If you're not a member, we'd still love for you to join us. You can join a la carte here at $15 a session. So, and you do that by registering. But you will want to be a member because there's so many fabulous things that we offer between our feedback circles and our SMEs and everything else that we've got in store for you coming up. Please register. Join us in our Mighty Networks platform, our Facebook and our LinkedIn, keep you up to date. And please do not shy away from sharing what you do on our Facebook and our LinkedIn page. We want the world to know what you do. So please get on there. Join us, become on our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, and share your goods as well, and keep in touch. Until next time, I thank you. I thank Valerie. I thank Sarah. Until we meet again, everyone. Thank you.